Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Thursday, May 28th. Over the next couple of days, we will continue to have very hot temperatures and near record-breaking heat across the Great Basin. And we will also have a few thunderstorms here and there over parts of the eastern Great Basin, along with an increase in winds starting Friday in the south and expanding and increasing in speed on Saturday across much of Nevada into western Utah. So we will see very hot and dry conditions throughout the next couple of days, and also an increase in lightning potentially along the Sierra front later on Friday and possibly into Friday night and Saturday as an area of low pressure tracks north up the California coast. Over the last 24 hours, we've only seen a few lightning strikes over parts of eastern Utah into eastern Nevada, and very little precipitation was reported with these storms. We had only light initial attack across the Great Basin with a few new smaller fires that were reported across Utah into southern Idaho. Over the last 7 days, we've seen very dry conditions over western and southern Nevada into the Arizona Strip and southern eastern Utah, and the only wetter spots have been further north up across Idaho, Wyoming, and into far northern Utah and northern Nevada, which has seen above normal precipitation for this week. Looking at our current fuel situation with the very hot temperatures we've seen and dry conditions, we've seen fuel conditions rapidly change and dry out over the southern half of the Great Basin. Over parts of southern Utah to the Arizona Strip and eastern Utah, ERCs are between the 70th and over 80th percentile. And over western Nevada, we are seeing these ERCs continue to rise now above the 50th percentile. Looking at some of our fuel charts, you can see generally over the southern and eastern side of the Great Basin, these ERCs are above normal and will be approaching records later this week in parts of southern and eastern Utah. Further west, ERCs have been climbing above normal and again will continue to rise here over the next 24 hours, but we'll see more of a decline as we see cooler temperatures later this weekend into next week. Our satellite image shows a strong ridge of high pressure dominating the west, which is again bringing us our very hot temperatures, where temperatures will be 15 to 20 degrees above normal and approaching record heat with very dry conditions. We will be watching this area of low pressure off the west coast as it tracks northeast northward along the California coast later on Friday and this weekend. We will see a potential increase in lightning briefly over the Sierra front. And we will also see some moisture get pushed up into eastern Utah throughout the weekend and more so next week for an increase in showers and thunderstorms. So again, the picture for later today, that ridge of high pressure in place, very dry conditions and hot temperatures, low to moderate fire potential, a lot more brown on the map showing that increasing fire potential in the south. Our temperatures, again, will reach 90s in most of the valley locations across the Great Basin and over 105 degrees in the far south, possibly even down above or up above 110. Relative humidity will remain in the single digits to low teens, with the exception of a little bit higher humidity in the far northern areas of the Great Basin. On Friday, that area of high pressure starts to shift a little bit to the east, so those hot temperatures will continue to move eastward over Utah, Wyoming, and Idaho. The area of low pressure off the California coast will be bringing some moisture along the Sierra front. Again, very limited moisture, but probably enough instability and moisture for thunderstorm activity potentially right along the Sierra front, with greater moisture and coverage of lightning further west into California. We'll also see an increase in winds with this area of low pressure, so we have highlighted the wind threat over parts of southern Nevada, but again, we'll continue to watch that lightning threat along the Sierra front. Relative humidity in the single digits to low teens across much of the Great Basin, and you can see those wind gusts increase, generally wind gusts between about 30 and 35 miles per hour over parts of Nevada on Friday. On Saturday, that ridge of high pressure really starts to shift off to the east as that area of low pressure tracks north into the Pacific Northwest. So we will see cooling temperatures over western areas of the Great Basin and still hot temperatures in the east. However, much windier conditions will expand on Saturday, so a much greater wind threat as that area of low pressure tracks north, especially across Nevada and into western Utah. These gusty winds on Saturday will also shift further north, but those fuel conditions in the north are not quite as critical. Relative humidity will remain in the single digits to teens over the eastern two-thirds of the Great Basin and start to increase a little bit over far western Nevada. And again, those wind gusts, the image on the right shows those stronger gusts really affecting most areas of the Great Basin with the exception of eastern Utah. However, further north, again, fuels are not quite as critical. Also over eastern Utah, we could continue to see that thunderstorm activity fairly isolated and tied to the higher terrain. Our forecast amount of precipitation is indicated here. As you can see, any lightning activity we do get will not produce a whole lot of precipitation over the next few days, so we will be watching areas of the Sierra front and also potentially eastern Utah for any upticks in fire potential, especially followed by the wind. On Sunday, that trough of low pressure, the first low ejects well off to the northeast, but we still have a trough of low pressure off the west coast. This will keep unsettled weather across the Great Basin, and also those gusty winds over central areas of the basin. Could see some lightning potential possibly over far western Nevada. However, most of the basin will be dry and breezy. As we move into Monday, we'll see more of that moisture move in, so we do have better chances for thunderstorms across the Great Basin on Monday, both in the east and in the west, with an area of still gusty winds and drier conditions over central regions of the basin. On Tuesday, that moisture really starts to increase across the Great Basin, so any thunderstorm activity we do see this weekend will likely be on the increase towards the middle of next week, but also we'll likely be seeing a little bit more moisture. This is not quite the monsoon. We're still well too early for the monsoon, but it will be a fairly wetter period for at least a couple of days across the Great Basin before conditions dry out again. So you can see we are starting to moderate some of our fire potential across the Great Basin on Tuesday, and then again on Wednesday as that moisture remains in place for continued showers and thunderstorms. The 7-day forecast amount of precipitation doesn't really show a whole lot. We'll likely see a little bit more precipitation over parts of the Great Basin as we move into Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. The 8 to 14-day outlook, taking us from June 4th to June 10th, shows cooler conditions in the north and still warm temperatures in the south, with a better chance of keeping some moisture in the Great Basin, at least through the first week or two in June, but we do expect conditions to dry out the latter half of the month. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.